Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of the Educational AD Podcast. We're going to be right back with today's guest, but as always, we want to give a shout out to our sponsors. Now, don't hit that fast forward button. Stay with us for the next 3 minutes or so. These are all companies that I used as an athletic director or I've got a direct connection with. You should be using them too. So listen to our shout outs, then listen to our interview, and then go visit these sponsors. I'm telling you, you're going to be glad you did. Here we go. We want to thank Hometown Ticketing for their support of the podcast. Go to hometownticketing.com. It's the leading digital ticketing provider to schools and colleges. Hometown Ticketing offers you more support, more security, and more customization. Go to hometownticketing.com to find the best online ticketing solution. We also want to say thanks to Gipper. Go to gipper.com. Start creating world-class content for your school's social media channel. It's going to help celebrate your teams and promote your athletes. Gipper's used and trusted by over 4,000 athletic programs across the country. It's professional graphic design made easy. Go to gipper.com to get started. We also want to thank Sideline Interactive, indoor score tables and video boards. Go to sidelineinteractive.com and schedule a live web demo to see their scoreboards and their score tables in action. Their products not only generate income for your athletic department, but they also create the ultimate game day experience for your student athletes. That's sidelineinteractive.com. We want to say thank you to Vital Signs Wall of Fame. Go to their website, vitalsignswalloffame.com. Check out their interactive touchscreen. That's right, touchscreen video consoles. It's a great way to show off your school record boards for all the teams, for all the sports, or your school's Hall of Fame. It's also a great way to share your school's unique history and your proudest moments. Go to vitalsignswalloffame.com. Mention the podcast, you'll get a nice discount. vitalsignswalloffame.com. We also want to thank Ohio University's online masters in athletic administration. This affordable online master's program focuses exclusively on interscholastic athletic administration. When you're done, you're not only going to have your master's degree, you're going to have 11 NIAAA leadership training courses that can go towards your RAA or CAA. You're also going to be part of a nationwide network with connections in K-12 athletics across the country. To get started, just go to ohio.edu/info/MAA, the Ohio University Online Masters. We want to thank Huddle for their support. Go to huddle.com and change the way you see the game. As a football coach, I used Huddle for years, but when I became an athletic director, I wanted a platform that was going to serve all of our teams, and Huddle came through like a champ. Our coaches, our athletes, our parents loved all the tools that Huddle provided that allowed us to coach our kids at the highest level. Go to huddle.com, join the 8 million users, and turn your school into a Huddle school. We also want to say thanks to Snap Raise. Have you ever spent weeks and weeks with a fundraiser and ended up with little, if any, return? Stop right here. Go to snapraise.com. Hands down, the best online fundraiser out there. We used it at our school with great success. Our coaches loved it. Our parents loved it. Hey, it works. Go to snapraise.com. Check out their other great platforms. But if you're looking for a fundraiser, you've found it. Go to snapraise.com. We'd like to thank Home Campus for their support. Home Campus is a platform that you're going to use every single day for things like scheduling, student athlete eligibility and clearance. Who doesn't do that every day? Communicating with your coaches, your parents, your kids, uploading rosters and digital signatures, you name it. Home Campus does it. Does it faster, does it better. It's going to leave you with a lot extra time on your hands. Go to homecampus.com. That's it. Just go to homecampus.com. And we'd like to thank Athletic Surveys by LifeTrack. Athletic Surveys is about connections. They're going to connect you with a group you probably already hear from, the complainers, the gripers. But that's only a small percentage of your stakeholders. Athletic Surveys is also going to connect you to the 98% that supports your program. And that's tremendously valuable information to have, especially when you're meeting with a frustrated parent, or maybe your principal, or even your school board. Go to athleticsurveys.com. They're going to let you take the pulse of everybody in your program. athleticsurveys.com. Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of the Educational AD Podcast. This is one of our back to college episodes. We do this frequently. Our guest today is David Zinn. He's an assistant professor of sport management at Lander University. That's in South Carolina. He's also their NCAA faculty athletics rep. David and I connected recently at the now I'm going to screw it up. I think the Peach Belt Conference indoor track championships. The conference held their championships in Gainesville at the University of Florida's indoor setting. I was one of the officials. David was there, and a ton of his students were there from the sport management program helping out. It was one of the coolest experiences that I've had as an official. We're going to hear about the program, and we're going to hear about David. So let's go ahead and bring him on. David Zinn, welcome to the Educational AD Podcast.
Good afternoon, and thank you for having me.
Oh, absolutely. You and I had a chance to talk a little bit at the track meet. And again, I thought you'd just be a great guest. And we also want to hear more about your program. But we always like to let our listeners have a chance to get to know our guests. So give us that quick bio, where you were born, where you grew up. Maybe take us up through your own high school and college days. Then we'll take a break. But what's the David Zinn origin story?
Reader's Digest version, born and raised in Fairmont, West Virginia, not far from Morgantown, home of West Virginia University. We claim fame to being the home, the birthplace of Mary Lou Retton and Nick Saban. And we've also got a couple other guys in the NFL Hall of Fame. So a small coal mining town that has put out its fair share of good athletes. Grew up in a town that valued school, sports, and church, not always in that order. So we really didn't have a lot of choice. We were doing one of those three just about all the time. So I had the opportunity to grow up there, played a little bit of high school sports, and went on to West Virginia University, where I got my undergrad and secondary education.
Well, I have actually been to Fairmont, West Virginia, many years ago, let's say 20 years ago. Our church did some work. We'd go out to communities, and we'd repair roofs or things like that. And there were a couple of families in Fairmont. You can probably guess the location of some of those families. But it was just a great experience. Our kids were there on the job site. My wife was there. Just a beautiful town, beautiful country. I'd never been to that part of the country before.
Right there at the base of the mountains. Oh, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
No, just right there at the base of the mountains, a little coal mining town that NASA kind of took over in recent years to make sort of a technology corridor. But it was a great place to grow up.
Okay, well, let's talk about that. The school setting. I'm going to guess it was, kind of small town sports. What are some of your memories of those days? And I'm going to guess you probably played multiple sports.
I did. I had the opportunity to play multiple sports growing up. A little bit limited. There were some sports I would have liked to have had the opportunity to play, but it hadn't come around that time yet. Lacrosse and soccer really didn't exist at that time. Really, it was kind of football in the fall, basketball in the winter, or wrestling, and then track to get in shape for one of those two going forward to the next year, or baseball. So yeah, you had your choices, but most of us did gravitate towards sports. And I definitely grew up in one of those towns where if you wanted to rob the bank, Friday night was the time to do it because everybody was at the stadium. Last one out of town, turn out the lights, because the two schools in our town were followed very closely by everybody there.
Yeah, no, you mentioned, lacrosse. I think I'm a little older than you, and my experience was the same. There was no soccer in high school. There was no lacrosse. And I always thought, well, I was a football and I was on the basketball team, but track and football are my big things. And I'm just thinking, boy, running around, hitting people with a stick, I would have been all over lacrosse. So,
I would have loved lacrosse. Just the right amount of contact. I think I would have enjoyed that sport a lot.
yeah. You been a coach, now you're in leadership, training that next generation of leaders in athletics and sports. I ask this question frequently. Can you recall a time, say from your high school days, might have been a practice, might have been a game, could have been a bus ride, that at the time, it didn't seem like much, but now looking back with experience and perspective, you can say, hey, that was a significant moment for me. Anything come to mind?
Yeah, a variety of things do. I don't know that I can pick just one, because just different settings, different lessons that maybe didn't make a lot of sense at the time, but things you always remember. Some of which were what not to do. I was in a halftime. I won't mention what sport or coach, but I distinctly remember being in a halftime long before I ever thought about coaching as a career, saying, if I ever led a team, I'm not going to do that. It's just one of those halftime situations where I kind of learned how I didn't want to act. Sometimes the most valuable lessons that you can learn are what not to do in the future. That said, I did have a lot of positive leaders as well that imparted a lot of life lessons. It's ironic growing up in that town. You can see the influence the town had on Nick Saban when I listen to his press conferences or
Right.
watch his leadership videos or anything. I swear I'm hearing my granddad a lot. So I had a lot of positive male influences talking about the process and about doing things right. And how are you going to have time to do it again if you don't have time to do it right the first time? So a lot of those sort of things that I hear coming from his philosophy, like him or not, and I went on to become a Tennessee grad, so I know I'm not supposed to root for Alabama in any way, shape, or form. I hear a lot of those life lessons when I hear him speak.
Oh no, absolutely, and I think it was that era that we grew up in. It's not right, wrong, good or bad, but it was definitely different than maybe what's going on now. Um, let's go and take a break. Our guest today is David Zinn. He's assistant professor in sport management at Lander University. That's in South Carolina. We're going to hear more about the Lander program and some more stuff from David, but let's take that break. We're coming back with more. This is the Educational AD Podcast. We'd like to thank Hometown Ticketing for their support of the podcast. Go to hometownticketing.com. It's digital ticketing that offers more. Hometown is not just going to sell you the platform, okay? They are going to show you how to use online ticketing for more than athletics, things like school plays, concerts, school dances, even graduation. And here's the best part. Every school is assigned a dedicated client success manager that's going to provide you hands-on support every step of the way. That's every step of the way, implementation and execution. Go to hometownticketing.com. It's digital ticketing that offers more. We also want to say thanks to Gipper for their support. Go to Gipper.com, start creating world-class content for your school's social media channel. It's going to help you celebrate your teams and promote your athletes. Gipper's used and trusted by over 4,000 high school and college programs across the country. It's professional graphic design made easy. How easy? So easy, even I can do it. Go to Gipper.com to get started. Welcome back, everybody, to the Educational AD Podcast. Once again, our guest today is David Zinn. He's an assistant professor at Lander University in their sport management program, also their NCAA faculty rep for athletics. David, you painted a great picture of small town growing up in Fairmont, and then it was off to college. Share with our listeners, your journey after graduation. You didn't start right at Linder. Take us on that journey. What were some of the stops that you made?
It was an interesting trip through college. I started out as an aerospace engineering major and quickly learned that I liked working with people more than I liked working with machines. And it took me a little while to work up the guts to make a move into education, but that really became where my passion was. Started working a lot of camps in the summer, youth camps and basketball camps, those sort of things. Was coaching my church league team. Was just kind of getting my foot in the door and finding that I just really enjoyed that. It became a passion of mine. So when I graduated college, I had the opportunity to be a social studies and history teacher in Winchester, Virginia. Was coaching three sports: girls basketball in the fall in Virginia at the time, boys in the winter, and track in the spring. So I was just completely wearing myself out. But really, I enjoyed the classroom, but I learned over the course of those first 2 years that that's not where I really wanted to be. I enjoyed being on a college campus. College coaching was sort of a calling for me at the time. So after 2 years, I packed the bags and went to Knoxville, Tennessee uh, pursue my graduate work at the University of Tennessee. And once I got on the college campus, I don't think I've left since.
Well, again, what you described, teaching and coaching three sports, that's how I started out. And I remember thinking, boy, they're paying me to do this. I'd probably do it for nothing.
Uh,
Um,
Absolutely, absolutely. They did pay me. I don't recall that it was very much, but I think I lost money on gas as far as that goes. But it was such a great introduction to the field of education and into coaching. And I really thought I was going to be a history teacher coming out of college for the next 50 years. And it was the experience there that led me to believe that college was where I was meant to be, though.
okay. Well, I spent 8 years myself, teaching and coaching at the college level. What was the I guess the path for you to transition from high school to college? Because it's not something they teach you, as an undergrad.
Yeah, when I went down and toured Tennessee, it was just such a familiar place. Though there was 25,000 students there, they made it feel like you were part of a very small group. So once I got in there and kind of just met some people and my faculty advisor, things just sort of started to roll. I had the opportunity while I was pursuing my master's to teach activity classes, something that came in handy throughout my career in athletics. Because I often had to teach education or sport management during my coaching career. And then I had the opportunity to be around Pat Summitt and the women's basketball teams down there. That's where I learned for the first time, how high level women's athletics could be. I was there for a national title year, an undefeated season, and just being in Knoxville was an incredible place to be for a sports fan. We won a football title during my 2 years as well. Just being around that program, learning basketball, learning teaching, making mistakes in the phys ed classroom on, teaching bowling and badminton and tennis, and just learning what works and what doesn't. I just fell in love with the process.
Boy, you hit the lottery there, Pat Summitt and Phil Fulmer, at the same time. Do you have a story to share about either one of those teams or sports? Fly on the wall sort of experience?
I was when Tennessee rushed the field after beating Alabama last year. They talked about the last time that had happened, and I helped do that when we beat Florida back in '98. And I didn't do it on purpose. I was just 3 rows from the field, and the entire student section was coming. So it was either sort of go or get trampled. But that's how I helped tear down the goalpost in '98. There in Knoxville. It was a great time to be there. Being around Pat's practices were absolutely unbelievable experience. She was tough, she was demanding, but you just wanted to play for her. You wanted to be in front of her. She could do anything better than anybody else could do. She chatted up the person in front of you better than you could. She was just a proper Southern lady that did a fantastic job with those young ladies, and I had so much respect for her, and she taught me a lot, just not about basketball, but about leadership.
Now, I don't know if this is true or not, but I heard that Coach Summit was one of the first coaches to have her team scrimmage against men in
Yes.
practice
Yep.
to make it more, again, men are taller, bulkier, not saying better, but any memories of those practices and watching things develop?
Yeah, it's funny you asked that. The time that I saw her go off the most was at one of her male practice players for accidentally undercutting one of her players in practice. He got a little overzealous and trying to play the game and got a little too competitive and undercut one of the players, and he was no longer a practice player a couple minutes later. But she was very, very upset about that situation. But you're right. She did use those guys. They took up a little bit more space on the floor, and they were a valuable part of the team. They traveled, and she treated them as players. Really, it's kind of her 15 through 20 players on the team, and they were a valuable part of that national championship run.
Oh yeah, no, and again, I would be remiss if I didn't mention that she had a lot of respect and admiration for those players and did treat them very well. But absolutely, I can't imagine her, blistering that one guy. Well, very cool. All right, post Tennessee, what was the next stop in your journey?
I had the opportunity to go on to Cumberland College in Kentucky, now the University of the Cumberlands. I was a graduate assistant there after leaving the University of Tennessee. So I picked up a second master's while I was there, part of a nationally ranked NAIA program. We went to the national tournament our second year. We're ranked in the top 10 most of that season. And that was really my first experience on the floor. Being at Tennessee, I could observe. I did a lot of stats for the Lady Vols and the SEC. But Cumberland put me on the floor coaching the JV team and coaching the varsity team. So I was on the court a lot every day, running 2 practices as an assistant coach for the varsity and the head JV coach, traveling around, doing a lot of fundraising as well. And that was really the first small school that I had been a part of. When I was looking at colleges, I really honestly thought in high school that you weren't a real college unless your school was going to bowl games. It wasn't until I went and was a part of a small college atmosphere that I realized what I had missed. Just knowing your professors who knew you by name instead of a number, the activities, getting to know your classmates, being a part of a small community. I was able to walk to work every day. The gym was about 200 yards from my back door. So being a part of that small community in a small town, I got a lot of respect for the small college atmosphere and what it could offer. And I've really been at the small college level ever since.
Yeah, no, and that's where I was fortunate enough to go as an undergrad at a small college. It was NAI, now it's D3, and also coaching at an NAI school. So you're absolutely right. Just love the relationships that you can build at that level.
Absolutely.
We're going to take another quick break. Our guest is David Zinn. He's an assistant professor at Lander University in the sport management department. We're going to hear about that program in just a minute, but let's go and take that break. We're coming back with more. This is the Educational AD Podcast. We'd like to thank Sideline Interactive for their support of the podcast. Go to sidelineinteractive.com and schedule a live web demo to see their indoor score tables and video boards in action. Probably one of the best purchases I ever made was our Sideline Interactive indoor score table. Of course, we use it for home games, but we use it for pep rallies. We use it for signing ceremonies. It's tremendously versatile, and their customer service is just outstanding. Go to sidelineinteractive.com. Schedule that live web demo today. We also want to say thank you to Vital Signs Wall of Fame. Go to their website, vitalsignswalloffame.com, and take a look at their interactive touch screen. That's right, touch screen video consoles. It's a great way to showcase your school record boards for all the teams, for all the sports, or your school's Hall of Fame. It's also a great way to tell your school's unique history and share your proudest moments. The website is vitalsignswalloffame.com. Mention the podcast, you'll get a nice discount. vitalsignswalloffame.com. We'd also like to thank Ohio University's online Master of Science in Athletic Administration. This affordable 20-month online program focuses exclusively on interscholastic athletic administration. And when you finish, you're not only going to have your master's degree, you're going to have 11 NIAAA leadership training courses that can go towards your RAA or your CAA credential. You'll also be a part of a national graduate network that has connections in K-12 athletics across the board. To get started, just go to ohio.edu/info/MAA, the Ohio University Online Masters in Athletic Administration. Hey, welcome back, everybody, to the Educational AD Podcast. David, just some great stories there from your time at Tennessee. I'd love to hear some more, but let's go and move on with your journey. Take us up to, and maybe include a little bit of joining your present school at Lander.
I think at that point, I began that normal college coaching nomadic experience, which was part of why I went into it. I was excited about moving around and seeing different places and things. I kind of went back home. I became the head basketball coach and sports information director at Salem International University. Started there as an assistant and ended up taking over the team partway into the season. Stayed there for about 3 years. Had the opportunity to move into Division III, which was really kind of a career goal of mine, down at Meredith College in Raleigh, North Carolina. I went to Meredith as a coach who had to teach classes on the side. 6 years later, I was a teacher who had to coach the basketball team on the side. I kind of fell in love with the classroom at that point, and knew that that was really the direction I was going to go in. Was ultimately staying in the classroom. So I did have the opportunity to get into administration. Became an athletic director after 6 years at Meredith at a couple of D3 schools, both women's colleges, giving me 3 women's colleges in a row, which has got to be a world's record. But I was the first male athletic director at 2 women's institutions, Chatham University and then Hollins University, which were great experiences. And I learned a lot in 4 or 5 years doing the athletic administration. But I miss the day-to-day interaction with the students. When I was talking to students, it was usually either compliance related or it was disciplinary. I kind of missed just that give and take on a daily basis. And I made the commitment at that point of getting back into the classroom. So I actually spent a semester teaching in Malaysia for the U.S. Sports Academy. Came back and spent a semester as an adjunct at NC State, which took me to Misericordia University, Pennsylvania, where I spent the last 6 years. Picked up my doctorate degree through East Tennessee State University, and then I had the opportunity to come back south to Lander, where I'm much happier with the weather down here in South Carolina than it was in Northeast Pennsylvania.
Well, your journey has a lot of similarities to mine. I settled down toward the end, but boy, you're right. That college coaching experience can be somewhat nomadic. What was it about the Lander University program that attracted you, and what makes you feel like it's, where you want to finish out those next 15, 20, 30 years?
30. Whoa. Let's slow down a little bit. No, Lander was starting a new sport management program. So this was something I was able to put my footprint on. I came down here just about 3 years ago and was just really excited about being in a college of business, a AA accredited program, the highest level of accreditation for colleges of business in the United States. And to be down here in the South where there was a footprint where I felt like we could do some things. Proximity to Charlotte, to Augusta, to Hilton Head, to Atlanta, gave me opportunities to get my students some real experiential learning activities, opportunities to intern or volunteer with different things. As you mentioned, we met down in Gainesville as we were working the indoor track championships. And I've been very fortunate here to have the support to really go out and to try and do some things with my students to get them that real world experience. When I go into the classroom, I'm bringing a lot of experience from my coaching days, my athletic director days, being a sports information director, a compliance coordinator. I think that experience is valuable and helps me in the classroom with my students. So I try to give them as much of that as I possibly can.
Our next segment, we're going to take a break here in a minute, and our next segment, we're going to do a deep dive into the sport management program. Share a little bit about what you do with the athletic program. You're the NCAA faculty rep for athletics. What does all that entail?
Yeah, I took over as a FAR about a year and a half ago, and it's been a really great experience to be able to kind of dip my toes back into athletics a little bit without having to be at every single game on campus or do the hiring and those sorts of things. Basically, I serve as the liaison between the faculty and the athletic department. So if there were to be issues with class attendance or disruptions or whatever the case may be, either way, then I'm the person that either the faculty or the athletes can come to for some assistance.
Um, has there, and you've only been on the position here now for about a year, but, what's something that you can share that, your leadership style, your management skills took let's say a small challenge and kept it from turning into, let's say a less than positive result. Anything come to mind?
Nothing specific. I can't say it's a little challenging at times because I can see both sides of things. As a former coach, I understand why a player may have made a decision or why a coach might have said a certain things. But I'm also an academic, so I can see why that would bother people on the other side. So the good thing about it is I can see both sides of things. The bad thing is I tend to see both sides of things, and sometimes it can be difficult to balance those two things.
Well, again, that's probably material for another podcast episode, but I'm intrigued about it. Let's go and take that break. But when we come back, we're going to take a deep dive into Lander University's sport management program, the curriculum, the activities, the students. So please stick around because we're coming back with some more. This is the Educational AD Podcast. We'd like to thank Huddle for their support of the podcast. Go to huddle.com and change the way you see the game. As a football coach, I used Huddle for years, but when I became an athletic director, I wanted a platform that was going to work for all of our teams, and Huddle came through like a champ. Our coaches, our student athletes, even our parents just loved the tools that Huddle provided that let our kids experience sports at the highest level. Go to huddle.com, join the 8 million users, and turn your school into a Huddle school. We'd like to say thanks to Snap Raise. Have you ever spent weeks and weeks with a fundraiser and ended up with little return on your investment? Stop right here. Go to snapraise.com. Hands down, the best online fundraiser out there. We used it at our school with tremendous success. Our coaches loved it. Our parents loved it. It works. Go to snapraise.com. Check out their other great platforms. But if you're looking for a fundraiser, you found it. Go to snapraise.com. You're going to be glad you did. We'd also like to thank Home Campus. Home Campus is a platform that you're going to use every single day. Things like scheduling, student athlete eligibility and clearance. Who doesn't do that every day? Uploading rosters, digital forms and signatures, communicating with your parents, your coaches, your kids, you name it. Home Campus does it better, and it does it faster, and it's going to give you a lot more time back in your day. Go to homecampus.com. That's it, homecampus.com to get started. Hey, welcome back, everybody. Once again, our guest today is David Zinn. He's an assistant professor with Lander University's sport management program. Now, David, you've had a tremendous career. You've seen a lot of different programs. What was it about the Lander program that attracted you? I know you said they were just starting it, but now that you're into it, what are some things that, from your perspective and experience, make you think that Lander's program is special?
Yeah, the people. We've got outstanding people who work here. I love our students. We have a big school vibe in a small town. We're roughly 4,000 students, give or take, in a small town here in rural South Carolina. But we feel like we're bigger than that. We have close to 30 sports in our athletic department. We have a ton of majors. We have a very, very good College of Business. We have an outstanding nursing program. Our College of Education is fantastic. We produce, students who are resourceful and have relevant skills to go into the workforce. So our MBA here is very good. We have a lot of connections throughout the state with working professionals, and I respected the academic nature of Lander while also its ability to produce high quality athletics. And with my connection with sport management, that connection was important to me as well.
Yeah. I had a chance to work with several of your students at that indoor track championship, and was just very impressed with enthusiasm, professionalism, and these are undergraduate students. What are some of the courses? What are some of the experiences that Lander provides that allows these types of skills to come to the surface when they're out in the world?
Our course offerings aren't all that different from most people out there. We do the introduction to sport management. We do the principles. We do the sport law and the sport finance and the sport marketing courses. I think what makes us maybe a little bit different is the experiential stuff that we try to put into it. There's a lot of professors out there that can lecture from a textbook really, really well. The majority of the people here in the College of Business have real world experience. Our banking class is taught by a former banker. Our accounting classes are taught by former accountants. We have, PhD level individuals, educated individuals, who also can rely on a great deal of experience. So I think that's what makes a little bit of the difference. I can lecture about human resources, but I've also hired people and I've fired people and I've been through the process multiple times. That makes it a little bit more real for our students. And I think they appreciate at least hearing about how what they're learning impacts them as future professionals.
That's a very important point in any course. The theory is great and you got to have it. You have to have that background of knowledge, but being able to go out and apply it in a variety of situations. Um, and again, I know the program's young, but can you share some success stories of Lander graduates that have gone out and whether they've gone to a post grad school or maybe found an entry level position or who knows, maybe that dream position for 25 years. Any success stories you can share?
Yeah, we've had a number of students already. Despite, as you said, being young, we've only put out a few graduates. But we've grown the program. When I got here, we had 12 students. We had 114, I think, this past year. So we've grown that much over the last 2 academic years. But we've already put some people out in the field. We have some individuals who are running a gym. We've got a number of people who joined our MBA program as graduate assistants this past year. I've got a number going on to graduate school in a variety of programs this coming fall. A former student of mine is working with the New York Jets in their game operations field. We took a number of individuals to the National Collegiate Sports Sales Championships in Atlanta this past winter, and they had a ton of interviews and are still interviewing with major sport professional organizations. So we are knocking on the door, putting some people in some pretty impressive places at this point.
Now, I shared with you before we even started recording that I recently had a chance to speak to some graduate students in sport and athletic management at another university. And part of my presentation, I gave them 3 tips for my 41 years. So you're on the front lines of training that next generation. Tell me how well I did. I'm just going to give you the bullet points. Number one, I told them to get as many experiences as they could, volunteer, internship, assistant coach, get out there and do those kind of grunt work jobs that every AD, every facility manager, anybody in the business is looking for people to do those jobs. So add your experience. Along with that, I told them to build their network, make those connections, introduce themselves to head coaches and ADs and program directors, because you never know when that's going to pay off for you down the road, not just in getting information back or increasing your knowledge, but being a professional connection. And then the third tool I told them, and I mentioned it was a tool that I failed to use until too late in my career, much too late in my career, and that's the tool of listening. Listen to people, listen to wise people, listen to parents when they want to complain. Sometimes they're just venting, but listen. So experience, networking, and listening. How'd I do?
That's about day 2 of Intro to Sport Management here. You right on the nose, right on the nose. We talk about those things, particularly when it comes to networking. That it's not just who you know, but who knows you, and that doesn't happen until you put yourself out there in front of people. And then, as my grad school advisor said, you take whatever job you've been given and you do it better than it's ever been done before. And if you're asked to, sweep the floor, then sweep it better than it's ever been done before. And if you can't take care of the little things, you're not going to be given the bigger things. So that's what we talked about at the track meet. If we were going to be raking the pits, rake them better than they've ever been raked before. And our kids kind of take ownership of that. And I'm proud of our students who quote that back to me and take even the little task and just try to prove their worth by doing them.
Oh, well, I could tell you 100% that's happened. All the officials that worked with your students at that track meet, we were just raving about, how they embraced their role and they were fun to be around. They weren't like some people we get, they're on their cell phone 99% of the time. No, they were engaged. They wanted to do a good job. Great stuff. Okay. Well, David, this has just been so cool reconnecting with you and having you share with our listeners, but we're not done yet. We always wrap up with the athletic director's toolbox. Now, you're not an AD right now, but you certainly know your way around the world of athletics. So, we're going to take our final break, hear from Athletic Surveys, who sponsor this particular segment. When we come back, I'm going to challenge you to send out a brand new athletic director on their very first job, but I'm only going to let you put 3 items in their toolbox. So let's take that final break. And when we come back, we're going to see what David Zinn puts into his new athletic director toolbox. Please stay with us. We want to thank Athletic Surveys for sponsoring the AD Toolbox segment of the podcast. Athletic Surveys are about connections. They're going to connect you in part to a group you already hear from, the complainers, the people that want to gripe about everything. But that's only a small percentage. Athletic Surveys are also going to connect you to the 98% of your stakeholders that support your program. And that information is tremendously valuable when you're talking to a frustrated parent or a student athlete, or maybe your principal or even your school board. Go to athleticsurveys.com. They're going to create a custom survey that lets you take the pulse of everybody in your program. Athleticsurveys.com. Check them out today. Well, it's that time of the podcast. We've been visiting today with David Zinn. He's an assistant professor at Lander University in South Carolina in their sport management program. Has a tremendous background in athletics and education. But right now, I'm going to challenge him to send out a brand new athletic director, but I'm only going to let him put 3 things in the toolbox. So, David, what 3 items are going to go into your new athletic director toolbox?
Yeah, it's a little ironic. We talk about a toolbox in our class a little bit, and we talk about that. It's hard to build a house with just a screwdriver. So you have to have multiple tools in your box. If I could send people out with three, time management is a huge one. Getting familiar with Google Calendar or a planner, or just having some sort of thing that doesn't just have everything in your head. I coach my students on that a lot. Um, I know it's up here and it's safe and I got it. Okay. And, I work better under pressure, except you don't. So the ability to manage your time, to plan things out, because as you know, as an athletic director, once you get out there, things happen really fast. Life comes at you pretty quickly. And if you don't have a time for your priorities scheduled, you're going to get yourself in trouble pretty soon. Number two would be a willingness to learn. I think it was John Wooden who said, the day that you've learned everything is the day that you're done. I never go anywhere without a book. I encourage my students to never go anywhere without a book. There's podcasts, there's, the YouTube, there's whatever, there's opportunities to learn from people. So go out, volunteer, talk to people. Don't assume that you know everything because you've been a sports fan your entire life. Liking sports doesn't mean that you're going to be great in athletic administration. Day one of, and I think you'll back me up on this, day one of Intro to Sport Management, we talk about, if you can't do this motion and fold chairs, you should probably change your majors, because you're going to do a lot of that type of thing. So be willing to learn. If you can recite the last 20 Heisman Trophy winners, that's great. It doesn't mean a whole heck of a lot. So be willing to learn from others. And then third, and this is not something I'm great at, but I would recommend patience. While you want to do things with a sense of urgency, you're not going to be in the corner office with the company car and a 6-figure salary on day one. When you get into athletic administration, I ask my students the very first day I meet them, what do you want to do? And I look over 50 faces, 40 of them want to be the general manager of the Boston Red Sox by the time they're 25. So you're going to have to be a little bit patient. You're going to have to be willing to pay your dues. I got through Tennessee by going to practices, teaching classes, doing my homework, loading Pepsi trucks at night, just so that I could afford the ramen noodles to survive. I learned how to sleep really, really fast when I was at Tennessee. You have to be willing to pay your dues, and I think people will respect you if you can prove that you've been doing that. So time management, patience, and a willingness to learn would be probably the 3 biggest tools I'd put in there.
Boy, those are, you probably saw me scribbling those down. Those are all very high on our list of tools, but and all very valuable tools. And the patience one is so key. I did an interview with a young man. It was for a middle school coaching position. That's how it was posted. And about 10 minutes into the interview, he goes, what's all this middle school stuff? I'm a varsity coach. I want to be the head coach. He's right out of college. So again, I said, hey, I love your enthusiasm, but this is what we have to offer for you. We hope you're interested. Anyway, David, we should have done this earlier. So shame on me for not doing it. If one of our listeners wants to reach out, pick your brain a little bit more. And listeners, I think you got a tremendous resource here. Or if they want to find out more about the Lander University undergrad program, maybe for one of their current high school students, what's the best way they can get a hold of you?
You can connect with me on LinkedIn. I have no problem with that. Look me up, send me a message there. I'm also on the Lander University website, lander.edu. You can check out all the programs that we've got, and I'm listed there under the College of Business as well. Those are probably the best two ways to get a hold of me, and you can learn a little bit more about what we have to offer here at Lander, because I think we're doing some very special things in a lot of different ways.
Well, I can tell our listeners firsthand. I've met your students. I've worked with your students. You guys are doing a great job there. So,
Thank you.
congratulations on that. For our listeners, we appreciate you tuning in. And just a reminder, we upload the Zoom recordings to the Educational AD Podcast YouTube channel. We do this just about every day, sharing stories and best practices for ADs, coaches, and leaders. We hope you come back for the next edition of the Educational AD Podcast.